Okay, good evening. I'm Sibyl, your co-host for today. Thank you for coming all the way down south to be part of science and also fulfilling our fundamental duty as outlined in our Constitution, Article 51A, to promote scientific temper. Before we start, I just wanted to tell you a background story on this. A few months back, some friends and citizens in Delhi were concerned and wanted to promote the scientific temper in a fast-changing society like ours. And so they had a seminar where they called luminaries in science and in academia, and they spoke. It was a success. It was a great event. And one of the coordinators from there, Dr. Hegde, who's here. Thank you, doctor, for coming here. He called up our co-host for the evening, Paritosh, and asked Paritosh if he could do something similar in Bombay. And Paritosh called us up, his Charlie's Angels, me and Meghna and Pallavi, and we said, yes, we would like to help out. And here we are. So I will start. I will introduce to you the panelists, and as I introduce them, they can come up one by one. We have a great lineup for today. I will start with Sanjay Rajoura, who has come from Delhi. Sanjay is an ex-software engineer, a justice junkie, and a misanthrope. Welcome, Sanjay. Okay, and Sanjay's partner in crime in the runaway hit show Aisi Taisi Democracy was Varun Grover, who also is here. Varun is a writer, a lyricist, and a stand-up comedian belonging to the best, most ancient galaxy ever, Milky Way. Varun. And our other special guests are our scientists from Bangalore and Delhi. Dr. Tejal Kanitkar, Associate Professor at the National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bangalore. Dr. Tejal is a mechanical engineer by training and works in the area of energy, environment, and climate change. And finally, we have Dr. Mila Mitra. Dr. Mila Mitra is an astronomer. Dr. Mitra says she's justifiably a bit spaced out. She's an astronomer. She has worked with NASA on various missions and now heads STEM and space, which encourages science education through space. She's an occasional dancer too. So, welcome, Dr. Mila. And finally, I would like to call upon stage Dr. Paritosh, sorry, Mr. Paritosh Joshi, almost a doctor, and moderate for us.
Thank you, Namita. I think we can spread out a bit. For making your way to this place this evening. Thank you, Namita, for getting this show on the road. And, above all, thank all four of you for being here. I want to say, with absolutely no fuss, right? These are people who are formidable public intellectuals in their own ways. We know Varun also as the Moh Moh Ke Dhage guy. We know Sanjay as the guy. So many different ways. I was watching your Edinburgh video this morning, the fourth dimension wala. And our two scientists have not just a domestic but an international reputation. So it's an overwhelming thing for me to be sharing the stage with all of them, but I'll try to make the most of it. So let me start with Mila right away. हमारे यहाँ पर टीवी चैनल्स पे ना सवेरे सवेरे वो एस्ट्रोलॉजर्स आके आज की भविष्यवाणी करते हैं. वो सवेरे का कार्यक्रम होता है. वहां पर आप जैसे लोग क्यों नहीं आते?
So yeah, I want to talk, So astronomy and astrology. So this often happens to me. When I say, hello, I'm an astronomer, they say, acha, astrologer ho aap. So they go into that. Of course, sometimes I'm mistaken for an astronaut, which is a better thing. But, but I would like to point out the difference between astrology and astronomy. So for a long time in history, they were running parallel. So the thing that, basically they were both measuring positions of celestial objects and stars. But when the physics started coming in, like gravity and how celestial objects are tied together with gravity, then they split. So now astronomy is the science of what are the positions, how they move, and astrologers take it further and they try to interpret it to say what will happen, what is the influence of the positions on you, on, your marriage or your future. So this is the way they separate. But I want to say something interesting. Astrologers are not even updated. Okay, I'll tell you how. Can one of you tell me your sun sign, if you believe in it, or you? Okay, if you don't believe in it.
I'm a Sagittarius with something ascendant and something going in the
Okay.
north and Mars going sideways.
Right. So, you often see that you're a Sagittarius or a Gemini or Leo. But do you know that this is all wrong now? I don't know if you know this. 2,000 years ago, this was true. Since then, the earth rotates on top. It's called precession. It rotates like a top. And it rotates like a top. So now the position of the sun has changed and it's off by one constellation. So that's one thing. And also people think there are 12 zodiac constellations, but actually there are 13. There's one called Ophiuchus also. So these are some of the things that astrologers have not updated. So besides the interpretation, there's also the science that needs updating.
Okay, maybe that's why all their predictions are going wrong. Huh? They just don't know why, but yeah, now they know.
No, but it's scary because it says, oh, fuck you. Sorry, what? Oh, I don't even know how to say it. It's a little, I'm sorry, this is a mixed audience and I'm trying to be polite. Say it yourself. I'm scared of saying. Okay, even she is scared of saying. अच्छा, ये जो आपने अभी विषय छेड़ा, संजय, मैंने एक बारी आपको ये इस सिलसिले में बोलते हुए देखा है कि बहुत साल पहले स्टीफन हॉकिंग आए थे. आपने कहा या आपने कहा, किसी ने स्टीफन हॉकिंग की बात जरूर की थी. हाँ, तो वो स्टीफन हॉकिंग की बात, उसका इससे क्या मतलब कुछ तार जुड़ते हैं?
सर देखिए, as Indians, first of all, right now, what India is right now, we have to be believers. And we can believe any shit. क्योंकि कोई भी एक आदमी आगे कुछ भी बोल देता है, ठीक है, उस पे हम कत्ल भी करने चले जाते हैं और वोट भी देने चले जाते हैं. The good thing about science is that it teaches you honesty and fearlessness, because ultimately you realize that you are an insignificant thing in the entire context of the universe. You are just an accident. And what Mila ma'am was saying कि astronomy और वो astrology, मैं एक बार वो शो में भी बोला था कि भाई वो पेपर में छपता है वर्गो सेजिटेरियस, इनके वो क्या लकी नंबर क्या है, लकी कलर क्या है. अब यार एक बार बताओ, अगर मैं आपको ये बताता हूँ आज तेरा लकी नंबर 6 है और तेरा लकी कलर रेड है, तो क्या करोगे आप उसका? मतलब आप क्या माथे पे 6 लगा के रेड टी शर्ट पहन के किसी भी लड़की को बोलोगे जाके फ्रेंडशिप कर लो और वो मान जाएगी? नहीं होगा ना. ये बिल्कुल कॉमन सेंस की बात है. और जो स्टीफन हॉकिंग की जहां तक बात है, स्टीफन हॉकिंग जब हिंदुस्तान में आया था तो हिंदुस्तानियों ने उसको एक एस्ट्रोलॉजर बना दिया. उससे पूछा कि मेरे बच्चे को गुस्सा बहुत आता है, कौन सा पत्थर पहनाऊं इसको, अंगूठी कौन सी पहनाऊं उसको. अब स्टीफन हॉकिंग बेचारा वो चल फिर पाता नहीं था. अगर वो चल फिर पाता होता, साबु होता, तो घुसण धर के वहां पे और बता देता उसको, जो हमारा संविधान में जो आर्टिकल है ना जिसकी बात 51A की बात की थी. हाँ, तो बस मेरा यही कहना है कि साइंस जो है ना सबसे ज्यादा ऑनेस्ट चीज है. अभी एक फिल्म आई ना ओपनहाइमर और बारबी, उसको लेके लिबरल्स ही आपस में लड़ रहे हैं कि साइंस तुम ओपनहाइमर इसलिए देखने जाओगे क्योंकि तुम्हें बम बनाना है. मैंने कहा है किस तरह की बात है. अगर मैं आपको हथौड़ा दूं एक लाके कि अपने घर में आपने कील ठोक के कोई पेंटिंग टांगनी है और फिर उस हथौड़े से आप जाके अपने ही बाप का सर फोड़ दो, तो हथौड़े की गलती है कि साइंस ने बॉम्ब थोड़ी दिया है. बॉम्ब एक चाइनीज सेइंग है, टू एवरी मैन इज गिवन अ की टू द ऑफ हेल एंड द सेम की ओपन्स द गेट्स टू हेल. अब आपने वो एक न्यूक्लियर रिएक्शन आपको दिया गया ना, आपने उससे बॉम्ब बनाना है या कुछ और करना है. बॉम्ब तो आप बना रहे हो ना यार, और उसके लिए साइंस को. और ये लिबरल डिस्कोर्स है. खैर मैं इसके बारे में आगे बात करूंगा, अभी मैं आपका
नहीं, बट ये बहुत सही बोला. तेजल, आई वांट टू ब्रिंग दिस टू यू. यू नो, साइंस अभी जो इन्होंने छेड़ी, दैट फियरलेसनेस, there are a couple of things, and maybe, maybe I might be jumping the gun in the presence of so many fine minds, but the first thing that you look for in science is evidence that there has to be something that you can observe which is there, and then you start from there, and then this can be a social phenomenon as much as it can be a physical one. I mean, Mila was talking about physical phenomena, but this is also true of phenomena that are out there in the society, and they frequently intersect. They are not living in separate universes. Now, what is it that causes this, confusion? ये अभी बात कर रहे थे हथौड़े की, and I'm thinking that one basic thought might be that a hathoda ultimately uses laws of motion to do what it does. So there is a physics going on every time I hammer a nail. So it's not distant things. Science is not something far away. Every time you cross a low road and you look to your right to see if there's a car trying to run you down. Of course, in Bombay, the scooterist is trying to run you down from the left also. And sometimes I wonder whether I should look up before crossing the road. But in our minds, we do some maths that how much time will that vehicle come before it collides into me? And do I have the time to get across? So this is scientific thinking, and we are doing it all the time. With this happening in our minds, why is it that, because, and you work literally in the cross section all the time, why is it that we find it so hard to explain that this is not otherworldly, this is not distant, this is everyday life?
Okay, so that's a very broad question, but let me try to summarize a little bit. Science, in my opinion, is, and it's a fact, it's not just my opinion. Science is a product of human endeavor. It is not revelation. You don't sit under a tree and gain knowledge, right? Science is a product of human endeavor, and therefore it is inherently social. It is socially produced. And that's the same kind of, understanding this is, I think, important to understanding the fact that it is not science that has some attribute of being the problem. I have been asked, for example, that, the bulldozer goes and bulldozes, slums and even trees, etc., etc. So why isn't technology a problem? It's the hegemony of technology. But the bulldozer doesn't wake up one morning and decide to go and, bulldoze a house, right? It is, the thermometer is not responsible for fever. So it is, in that sense, who produces, who controls, and who owns the science. Is science owned by the people who actually produce it? The fact that it is people's science in some sense. It is people who are involved in producing the science. It is they who own it, and therefore it is for them that it has a tremendous emancipatory potential. Science has the potential to emancipate us from drudgery, from loss of life and limb, and you don't see this aspect of science, but what you see is you confuse its ownership with as an attribute of the science itself, and this I think is a major problem. And the other part of your question about, why is this such a issue, getting people to understand that we do science on an everyday basis. So why is it that you can't apply that outlook? People look for certainty. And one fundamental difference between faith and science is, I think, the fact that faith offers certainty, science does not. Science is inherently characterized by uncertainty. Practicing scientists deal with it all the time. You don't say that आप ये दवाई ले लोगे तो 100%, the way in which you test, etc., you have a probability, you have uncertainty associated with it. There's a likelihood of something working or not working. But in social life, people don't like uncertainty. You want certainty, and faith offers that certainty. And so you then expect the same kind of authoritative statements from science, which science cannot and should not give, because science inherently, and you spoke about how it teaches you honesty, it's inherently anti-authoritarian skepticism. Science is not another authority. It is not a set of pronouncements and a set of outcomes. It is a process. It is a process that is filled with uncertainty. We might get something wrong, which we might correct at a later time. But understanding that science is a process, it's not just another authority, is, I think, fundamental to understanding the scientific method.
अथॉरिटी का बड़ा खूबसूरत मुद्दा है. Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
And that was faith.
वरुण, एक मर्तबा आपने ये विषय काफी विस्तार से इसके बात की कि हमें अथॉरिटी का मतलब बचपन से हमें ट्रेनिंग दी हुई है कि किसी ने कह दिया तो हमको मानना है, तो वो कहीं भी हो, किसी भी अवस्था में हो. और ये जो साइंस की जो बात कर रही हैं, इसमें हर चीज के ऊपर सवालिया निशान लिखाना अपने मन में होना चाहिए. If you have a questioning temperament, then you have skepticism. If you have skepticism, you have science. So, you've obviously thought about this issue. Why is it that we love authority so much? Because the converse of this thing, that, science belongs to the people, is that when science gets propertized and controlled, the same emancipatory science becomes oppressive science. The same science that can take you away from drudgery can lead to oppression. And we are seeing plenty of that. How is it that this questioning attitude is, what is it about us? मतलब ऐसा क्या है? हम में ऐसी कौन सी खामी या कमी है? क्या और समाजों में ये नहीं होता है कि हम ही एक मतलब इससे ये दुष्प्रभाव से इसके फंसे हुए हैं?
तो दो तीन चीजें हैं मेरे ख्याल से. एक तो कल्चरली शायद हमारे यहाँ जो बिलीफ सिस्टम जो है और बिलीफ पे जो बिलीफ है हमारा, वो बहुत स्ट्रांग है. और उसका एक कोर, द फर्स्ट थिंग बिलीफ वांट्स ऑफ यू इज टू स्टॉप क्वेश्चनिंग. एंड एज डॉक्टर तेजल सेड कि सवाल जो हैं वो अनकंफर्टेबल होते हैं साइंस में. साइंस का कोर ही डाउट है, और बिलीफ सिस्टम का कोर है लैक ऑफ डाउट और रिमूविंग डाउट. तो वो अपने आप हमको शुरू से ही सिखाया जाता है कि सवाल नहीं पूछना है. और वो घर में भी हमारे, ऑल्सो बिकॉज ऑफ द फ्यूडल सिस्टम विच वी हैव बीन फॉलोइंग फॉर लाइक अब 500 साल, 1000 साल, 2000 साल से जो हमारा चल रहा है, वो फ्यूडल सिस्टम है. और उस फ्यूडल सिस्टम के तहत भी वो शायद उनके नोट्स हैं. हाँ, तो उसके तहत भी सवाल पूछना इज ऑलवेज अ डेंजर टू द अथॉरिटी. सो रिमूवल ऑफ क्वेश्चनिंग हैज बीन अ सिस्टमिक कल्चरल थिंग विद अस. जैसे मैं आपको एग्जांपल दूं, शुरू में मेरा जब इंटरेक्शन हुआ साइंस से, मतलब वैसे होता है जिंदगी में, सबके होता है, बट आपको पता नहीं चलता है कि ये साइंस है. एवरीथिंग वी आर डूइंग इज बेसिकली साइंस. साइंस हैज मेड आवर लाइव्स so comfortable and in so in such a silent manner कि हम नहीं पहचान पा रहे हैं उसको. लेकिन हम सब चीज साइंस के जरिए ही कर रहे हैं. जो लोग साइंस को गाली दे रहे हैं ट्विटर पे जाके या किसी भी सोशल मीडिया पे जाके, उनको ये नहीं पता है कि अगर साइंस नहीं होती या एवोल्यूशन थ्योरी उन्होंने नहीं मानी होती या किसी ने नहीं मानी होती, तो वो ये सोशल मीडिया और सैटेलाइट से कम्युनिकेशन और 50,000 चीज़ें जो हैं, इनफैक्ट आपकी शब्दावली, आपकी भाषा, वो भी नहीं आ पाती. यू वुड हैव बीन प्रॉबली मम्बलिंग इनसाइड योर हेड दैट आई डोंट बिलीव इन साइंस, बट you are actually using words on a technology which is really futuristic, which has been made possible because of science, and then you are saying I don't believe in science. So बहुत पहले मैं शायद 15 साल का था जब वो इंडिया में वो एक मिराकल हुआ था पहला। खैर पहला मिराकल तो जब इनका जन्म हुआ था तब हुआ था। तो दूसरा मिराकल जो है जब वो गणेश जी के आइडल पूरे देश में दूध पीने लगे अचानक से एक रात को। एक दिन सुबह दोपहर तक खबर आ गई हमको लखनऊ में कि भाई सब लोग मंदिर जा रहे हैं और गणेश जी को दूध पिला रहे हैं। तो हम भी गए out of curiosity, and it was a fantastical thing to believe. It was like, okay, wow, if it is actually happening, then yeah, wow, it's we are the chosen nation on this planet kind of a thing. और हम गए वहाँ और फिर हमने देखा, मैं और मेरा दोस्त गया एंड हमने जाके कोशिश की और वहाँ इतनी धक्का मुक्की थी और कुछ मुझे कोई क्लैरिटी नहीं मिली। आई कुड नॉट सी दैट मिराकल हैपनिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ मी। आई वॉज लाइक कि ये मिराकल जो है जो लोग बोल रहे हैं सुबह से हो रहा है ये मुझे दिखा नहीं है। सो आई वॉज अनसेटिस्फाइड। सो वी वेंट टू डिफरेंट टेम्पल्स कि कहीं पे तो मिराकल दिख जाएगा एंड सो दैट वी कैन सम डे टेल आवर वट एवर फ्यूचर जनरेशन कि हमने एक देखा था। एंड वी केप्ट गोइंग फ्रॉम प्लेस टू प्लेस, कहीं नहीं, कुछ नहीं। मतलब एक क्या बोलते हैं प्रॉपर प्रूफ मुझे नहीं दिखा। आई कुड सी बहुत इधर उधर धक्का मुक्की हो रही है एंड वो चम्मच जब तक टेढ़ा नहीं करो वो दूध जा ही नहीं रहा है। वो सीधा रखा था चम्मच बिकॉज आई वॉज ऑल्सो टेस्टिंग दिस थिंग एंड बट और and those were the amazing times when when Doordarshan on the same night the national news channel debunked this miracle by saying this is pure science which is happening. There is a scientific proof behind it. दूरदर्शन पे रात को साइंटिस्ट आए 8:30 बजे के समाचार में, उन्होंने बताया कि कैपिलरी एक्शन एक चीज़ होती है, सरफेस टेंशन एक चीज़ होती है, उसकी वजह से ये सब हो रहा है। ग्राफिक उन्होंने बना के दिखाया। सो आई वाज लाइक या यही मैंने भी देखा कि मतलब ये तो मिराकल नहीं है। सो नेक्स्ट डे आई वेंट टू माय फ्रेंड जिसके साथ में गया था और वो काफ़ी अभिभूत हो चुका था, उसको होने लगा था मंदिर में कि ये हो रहा है। तो मैंने उसको अगले दिन बोला कि ये तुमने देखा रात को न्यूज़? तो सरफेस टेंशन कैपिलरी एक्शन की वजह से हो रहा था। तो उसने कहा कि सरफेस टेंशन और कैपिलरी एक्शन किसने बनाया? भगवान ने बनाया ना। तो भगवान का ही तो मिराकल है ना ये जो हो रहा है। तो अब उसके बाद मेरे पास असल में कोई जवाब, बट आई फिगर्ड एट दैट एज दैट दिस जनरल लव मिराकल्स वी हैव। हमको जो शरद जोशी जी का भी एक आर्टिकल है, मेरे बहुत प्रिय सटायरिस्ट हैं, का एक आर्टिकल है, अब कोई एक चमत्कार होना मांगता। इट्स अबाउट हाउ वी बिलीव इन चमत्कार अ लॉट एंड वी कीप वेटिंग फॉर चमत्कार एंड व्हेन नो चमत्कार हैपेंस वी इन्वेंट चमत्कार। तो हम लोग चमत्कार को बहुत ज़्यादा वैल्यू देते हैं और वो एक साइंटिफिक टेम्परामेंट से डायरेक्ट क्लैश होता है वो चमत्कार। लाइक सो एस्ट्रोलॉजी इज प्योर कार राइट एंड वी बिलीव इट। और वो क्यों वर्क करती है? लाइक सो मेनी पीपल व्हाई दे ड्रॉप हो रहा है क्या?
हाँ, कुछ ऑडियो में ड्रॉप हो रहे हैं।
हाँ, तो इज अ वेरी सिंपल। सो आई हैव अ रिलेटिव इन दिल्ली जो एक वीज़ा एजेंसी चलाते हैं, अमेरिकन वीज़ा वो दिलवाते हैं। तो उनका बहुत बढ़िया एक सिस्टम है, कमाल का। उन्होंने एक आइडिया लगाया है कि आपको अगर आप जाइए वहाँ, वो वीज़ा फॉर्म आपसे भरवाएंगे, अगर वीज़ा मिल गया तो आप उनको 10,000 रुपये देंगे, अगर नहीं मिला तो आप उनको कुछ नहीं देंगे। सो सेम प्रिंसिपल एज एस्ट्रोलॉजी वेयर इफ समथिंग वर्क्स आउट यू बिलीव उनकी वजह से हुआ, आप उनको पैसा भी दे दोगे। इफ नथिंग वर्क्स आउट यू हैव नॉट लॉस्ट एनीथिंग राइट। आपने तो वो उन्होंने कहा था कि नौकरी मिल जाए, नहीं मिली आपको, अब आप खुद में खामियां ढूंढोगे कि हाँ इस वजह से नहीं मिली, बाबा जी ने तो बोला था मिलेगी। पर so that great system of getting a visa is how how astrology works in India or in around
I think that's a natural cue for you, Mila. Somehow every reference to astrology is going to bring me back to you. But on a serious note, he just used the word chamatkar. miracle. And he began by talking about, in a sense, the multiple miracles that we now take for granted. I have a mic in my hand, has no wire visibly connected to anything. Somehow, whatever is happening here is being turned into amplified sound, which everybody can hear. And it's being recorded and will eventually become a video. This is pretty damn miraculous.
Sir,
In fact-
I disagree with you here. बीच में जो एक तो वरुण ने जो बोला उससे मेरे हिंदू सेंटिमेंट्स बड़े हर्ट हो गए और बीच में जो आवाज ड्रॉप हो रही थी कौन कर रहा था
बहुत जबरदस्त शायद यहाँ पर मतलब हम इतना ये भयानक काम कर रहे हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं शक्ति है और वो शक्ति यहाँ पर मंडरा रही है
मैं शक्ति की बताऊं आपको मतलब मुझे ना सबसे ज्यादा खुंदक देखो राइट विंग का तो एक सिंपल सा चैप्टर है उनको तो रैशनैलिटी समझ में ही नहीं आती है ठीक है तो उनसे तो आर्गुमेंट साइंस का करना ही नहीं है जो लिबरल ब्रिगेड है वो अलग ही भांग पी के घूम रहे हैं साइंस के बारे में ठीक है कुछ लिबरल ब्रिगेड में आपको मिलते हैं कि आई डोंट बिलीव इन गॉड बट आई बिलीव इन सम एनर्जी
हाँ एनर्जी
है ना अब यार क्या मतलब है इस बात का यार ये पोटेंशियल एनर्जी काइनेटिक एनर्जी न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी कौन सी एनर्जी है ठीक है
स्ट्रॉन्ग फोर्स वीक फोर्स
हाँ सम फोर्स कि नहीं यार कुछ तो होगा ही जो ये ठीक चल रहा है नहीं स्पिरिचुअल के बारे में तो मुंह मत ही खुलवाओ मेरे को यार कहते कि यार एक लिबरल बैठ के मेरे को अच्छा पढ़ा लिखा लिबरल मेरे को कहने लग रहा कि भाई science cannot explain how I am connected to the universe. मैंने कहा तू है कौन बे कि तेरा कनेक्शन साइंस बताए यू आर जस्ट एन एक्सीडेंट अगर कल को कोई प्लेनेट पे आके कोई मीटरॉइड हिट कर जाए और सारे मर जाए किसी को यूनिवर्स में देने का फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला तो कनेक्शन ढूंढ रहा है वहां पे एक उसके बगल में एक लॉयर बैठी हुई थी सुप्रीम कोर्ट की और वो भी ऑब्वियसली राइट विंग नहीं थी वो कहने लग रही कि साइंस ये नहीं बता सकती कि हाउ डज एन इन्फेंट फाइंड्स हर मदर्स ब्रेस्ट इन्फेंट मैंने कहा ये इवोल्यूशन नहीं पढ़ा आपने
अब नहीं पढ़ाएंगे अब नहीं पढ़ाएंगे
अब तो जरूरत ही नहीं है कोई इवॉल्व होने की जरूरत सबने छोड़ दिया ना इवॉल्व होना ही नहीं है ना हमने वापस जाना है लंगूर बनना है हमने वापस से
उल्टी गिनती शुरू हो चुकी है
हाँ हो चुकी है तो I'm sorry I interrupted you conversation sorry.
No, what I, to his point now this can take you straight into the anthropic principle and the weak anthropic principle and the strong anthropic principle and they are meaningful and beautiful things where I was going with it was that I see miracles everywhere, right? I mean, I merely need to look up at the night sky and I see miracles everywhere. I don't need a creator to worry about those miracles. I know that there are black holes there. I know there are, quasi-stellar radio sources somewhere far away. I know that this whole business is 14 billion years old, give or take. These days we don't even know the population of this country. So who am I to, talk about the history of the universe? But there is, one of the other aspects, I mean, curiosity is one aspect of the scientific temper. I think a sense of wonderment is another.
Yeah, so being an astronomer, of course, you're always looking at the sky and you realize that, energy, ye kuch bhi hai, but you know that you are just a speck. And that is where, Carl Sagan spoke about the pale blue dot. So, where Voyager, that was leaving the solar system, took a picture of Earth, and Earth was just a little dot. So, iske liye hum, and what he said is, on this blue dot, we have everyone we know, people we love, all the, conquerors, all the destroyers, saviors, everything on this Earth, and this is our only Earth. So, from that, we get the sense ki hum kitne chote hai, और हमारे में we are discussing and arguing right now. What does it matter? We are on a blue, one small dot, which is a speck in the universe. So इस dot के लिए we go into wars, we go into political warfare, crimes. So we all need to be aware that the universe has given us this privilege that we are on the only planet we know that is habitable right now. So maybe someday we'll find another planet, and we are capable of going to visit other places like Moon and Mars, maybe staying there, but not to settle there. So this is our only planet, and the wonderment we should have is that of such a huge place in the universe, we are the only planet or speck we know where life can survive, and where we are all surviving and doing our daily drama and daily lives. So that is the wonder. Also I want to say that, we're learning more and more about the universe, and that is the questioning that comes in. हम सोचते थे कि कैसे universe form हुआ है, how did the solar system form, how did Big Bang. We didn't just know about Big Bang. It's the technology is advancing, the telescopes are getting better, scientists are asking the question कि ये कैसे हुआ, फिर ये hypothesis they make, then maybe we have the technology to test it, and maybe we get the answer. So like that, our understanding, awareness of the universe, of our place in the solar system, of even how dinosaurs were killed by asteroids, all this is evolving. So because we ask the questions, because we are working on improving our technology, and even that we have to design, like James Webb Space Telescope. We wanted it to look further back in time, but for that we have to have a design. The design is that it has to look further in infrared, because as things move away, like trains, the frequency changes. So uske liye we had to make better instrumentation. Now the better instruments get very hot, so we had to find instrumentation that sunshades that keep it cool. So it's really a marvel of technology that we are playing with, and that is because we are asking the questions, trying to find the answers. Maybe we are failing. Chandrayaan II failed to some extent. It succeeded to some extent, but from the failure we learned the questions. What went wrong? What can we do to make it better? So that is the scientific concept, that we keep on asking questions, have a prototype, brainstorm, and try to find the answer. And that is the wonderment.
Chandrayaan III is supposed to get into the
So,
moon's gravitational control.
that's today, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Is it happening?
That will happen correctly. So
it will enter the moon's.
so as you all know, the Chandrayaan III story is going on right now, and the launch was successful, and then again, it will reach the moon on about 22nd, 23rd, and that is going to be the big test. But now, like I said, because we've learned from all the things that went wrong, so we have a better landing system, we have better cameras that will help you see the hazards. So that is science, it is learning. From your mistakes, we will make mistakes and learn.
That's the beauty about science. Actually, you know what? Science never promises that I'm telling you the entire truth right now and I will not change. So it's like Newtonian mechanics. जब हम वो पढ़ रहे थे Newtonian mechanics में, तो वो clockwork universe वगैरह जो था, but then सर ये silent किसी ने नहीं करा. टेक्नोलॉजी आ गई.
आती ही है.
मैं बता रहा हूँ, अब कोई ना कोई इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में इंटरफेयर कर रहा है. कोई पावर है,
शक्ति है.
तो जब बोर ने एटम का मॉडल दिया और ब्लैक बॉडी रेडिएशन का जो हुआ, प्लैंक ने वो किया, क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स का जो समझ आने लगी लोगों को, प्रोबेबिलिटीज की बात आने लगी, तो उस क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स ने उस वक्त ये बोला कि यार पहले जो न्यूटोनियन मैकेनिक्स का क्लॉकवर्क यूनिवर्स था वो मैक्रो वर्ल्ड पे मेरी समझ थी, लेकिन अब मुझे और पता चल गया. ठीक है, तो इट्स लाइक कि मुझे पहले पता नहीं था, अब मुझे और पता चल गया. रिलीजन में ये कभी होता नहीं. और एक वरुण ने बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात करी कि चमत्कार को लेके, ठीक है ना, कि हम चमत्कारों में बड़ा हम मैन्युफैक्चर भी कर लेते हैं चमत्कार. आई थिंक इन माई लाइफ द ग्रेटेस्ट चमत्कार वॉज फोटो इलेक्ट्रिक इफेक्ट एक्सपेरिमेंट बाय एल्बर्ट आइंस्टाइन, जिसने प्रूव किया कि मैटर इज डुअल नेचर, वेव भी है, पार्टिकल भी है. एंड आई वाज ब्लोन अवे. यार एक इलेक्ट्रॉन डबल स्लिट एक्सपेरिमेंट में दोनों जगह पे है। इससे बड़ा चमत्कार और क्या हो सकता है?
For those who don't know, Einstein didn't get his Nobel Prize for relativity or anything. He got his Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect. I want to come to you, Tejal. You know, the zone or the area that you work with actually talks about the kind of perils and hazards that growing technology, starting from the steam engine, Robert Louis Stevenson, more than 200 years ago, has created for the world today, and what the consequences might be like. And, you know, do we have a path back from this massive peril that lies ahead? This kind of a thing is a place where ये जो liberal की जो बात कर रहे थे, जिनको मतलब उनका शंका के समाधान कभी होते नहीं है, और बहुत सारे उसमें से अभी इकोलॉजी और कंजर्वेशन और सस्टेनेबिलिटी की भी बहुत भयंकर बातें करते हैं. So there is also a new emerging sense of the Frankensteins monster nature of science. And so the one part of the avoidance perhaps comes from there, do you think?
Yeah, I think you very rightly said that I work in energy, environment, climate change. That's really at the intersection of science and society in many ways. And this idea, of course, the environment is something that we deal with on a regular basis, so it's a free-for-all. You have scientists weighing in, but everybody has an opinion, right? The public has an opinion, but the public is not an undifferentiated public. You have the middle classes and the educated classes who deal with regular cognitive dissonance when it comes to the environment. You have a problem with, you just go down from here to Pune and look at the ads, or even in Mumbai, all the advertisements that you have for housing in Mumbai. You have this great, heated pool and golf course here and all amenities within gated communities. You won't have to see the dirty underbelly of capital in your city. You don't have to see the slums. You don't have to see the little galas that produce the nuts and the bolts that reprocess your plastic, that manage your waste. You will have this lovely little place which will also have greenery, which will have trees, which will have lawns, which will have this lovely view of the environment. And so you see the value in the green, but you do not see your own contribution to the fact that you have a problem in terms of environment. That problem is created by something that you do not like to see. It's dirty. Coal is dirty. Oil is dirty, or you have manufacturing is dirty. So this idea that it is science that is responsible for something like this, I think is an unscientific and ahistorical view of the problem of climate change and environment itself. Look at what is, and it comes from this utopian idea of the past, as if there was some harmonious, balanced relationship that humankind had with nature in the past. That's not true. It was not, you never had that kind of a relationship. Many species still do not have that kind of relationships. You have a lot of animal species moving out of the forests, coming closer to human settlements because it's easier to find food there, right? It's not, so this idea of some utopian natural world where, human beings live in some kind of harmony and now, speak loudly, right? All right. Yeah. So we need to, so we need to now, this is now a counter-attack. Climate change is now a counter-attack by nature. This, I think, is an unscientific view, and this comes from this, idea that there is something, you have this cognitive dissonance where you're living a certain life which you don't want to give up or you don't want to question, and yet you have some view of environmental protection, conservation, etc., etc. And so you need to attribute it to something, and so you attribute it to a very ahistorical and unscientific view of what has happened in the past, some kind of a utopian imagination of how human beings were so much happier. You forget, for example, that women were not in public life many years back. When you didn't have amenities, when you didn't have appliances in your kitchens, in your homes, women had to do most of that work. Most women still have to do that work. It's a shame that hasn't reached all the women, perhaps has reached the women who are in this room today, but not all the women that we have in this country. So, you know, the fact that move outside our houses into public life has been possible for us as at least a fraction of the population is the success of science, right? So you throw the baby out with the bathwater saying that, you know, this is a problem. It's in my view, unscientific. We look at what, for example, the richer countries of the global north, the developed countries who've reaped the benefits mostly of fossil fuel consumption, have been able to achieve in terms of you know, poverty eradication, life expectancy, mean years of schooling across different human development indicators. Why do we give all that up just as some mistake, right? That's a problem. So achieving human well-being is not a mistake. Right? And they have been able to clean up local environmental pollution. It's not as if they haven't been. So you also create, as you progress, the means to clean up the pollution that you cause. It's not as if human agency is limited. No, we have this, you know, unprecedented problem of climate change, and now suddenly we talk as if all we need, the only solution is to go back in time. That human beings are not going to be able to solve this problem because you have, you know, you've sort of taken a step back and refused to take a scientific view of the problem. You would rather, you know, whatever, wallow in nostalgia.
Varun, there is a term for this. I think the term is NIMBY.
Yeah, not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard. So this NIMBY phenomenon is not only restricted to this in terms of, you know, the way that we deal with the world. I saw something very interesting this morning. I'm sure we might have all spotted it. So there are people fleeing the great metropolis of Gurugram right now for reasons that I do not wish to dwell on. And the greatest concern that a certain NIMBY lady had in a residents' welfare association, हमारे घर के बाहर कूड़े के ढेर अभी इकट्ठा हो रहे हैं, आप इनके लिए कुछ प्रबंध कीजिए, नहीं तो हम तो झाड़ू पोछा कर लेते हैं, लेकिन ये सब चीजें हम कैसे करेंगे, कचरा निकालना है. So NIMBY is a हम दोनों के मतलब लगभग मेरे और मेरे माइक के मिलते जुलते हैं विचार. नहीं बनती है. अच्छा, तो मेरा विचार इसका और अलग है. By the way, we are obviously arguing on this. But didn't quite get it. The Frankensteins Monster view. And in a strange sense, ये जो आप जो पहले कह रहे थे संजय, कि ये liberal, ये जो हमारे नए liberal communities हैं, उनमें ये ऐसी चीजें बड़ी fashionable हैं बोलने की. You know, कि I want to lead the simple life. Simple life means I am going to Kunur and I am building a bungalow. Or I am going to Dharamsala and I am building a bungalow.
Or I'm going to go and opening a bar over there.
Going to bar, opening a bar. तो ये विरोधाभास जो है, ये लोग कैसे? How is it that we are strangely unaware or unconscious of these weird contradictions that people are inhabiting simultaneously?
मुश्किल सवाल मुझसे क्यों पूछ लिया गया है. यहाँ दो साइंटिस्ट बैठे हैं तो मुझे नहीं पता, पर नहीं, विरोधाभास तो खैर मुझे लगता है वो इंसानी फितरत है. हम लोग हमेशा, और जितना ज़्यादा एक जो हमने देखा है, जितना ज़्यादा लैक ऑफ साइंटिफिक टेम्परामेंट होता है उतने ज़्यादा कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी व्यूज़ आप अपने दिमाग में एक साथ रख सकते हैं, which is kind of one of the hallmarks of of the right wing across the world, that आप अचानक से you can switch from A to B to C, जो जो जैसे मैंने अभी एग्जांपल दिया कि जब मैंने उसको बताया कि है ना सरफेस टेंशन जैसी चीज होती है या कैपिलरी एक्शन होता है, तो उसने बोला कि हाँ वो भी तो भगवान ने बनाया। सो वो अचानक से वो जस्ट फ्लिप्ड, लाइक सो साइंस से प्रूव होना था वो किसी और चीज से प्रूव हो गया, बस ऐसा उनका मानना है। तो विरोधाभास के अंदर हम लोग हमेशा रहते हैं। इनफैक्ट लॉट्स ऑफ साइंटिस्ट्स वुड आल्सो बी देयर, आई वुड से, but that's the journey, I think, of a scientist or anyone with a curious mind, is to get there where you are not you know uh, living in certain contradictions or hypocrisy of। तो जैसे कि जो अभी बात हो रही थी, एक एग्जांपल जो एक और जो मैंने बात की कि जो हैं इंटरनेट पे ही लेकिन वो साइंस को गाली दे रहे हैं, या एवोल्यूशन थ्योरी जो अभी हटाने की बात हुई, हट गई हमारी किताबों से एवोल्यूशन, क्योंकि एक मिनिस्टर ने तो बोल भी दिया था कि वो हमने तो किसी ने देखा नहीं है बंदर से आदमी बनते हुए। तो हाँ वो मिनिस्टर
यहीं
ही
के
थे।
थे, इसी शहर में थे।
हाँ हाँ क्या पता आ ही जाए अभी। तो उन्होंने कहा कि किसी ने बंदर से आदमी बनते हुए नहीं देखा, इसलिए थ्योरी ऑफ एवोल्यूशन गलत है। तो इससे दो चीजें समझ में आती हैं, एक तो ये कि वो थ्योरी ऑफ एवोल्यूशन नहीं मानते, वो तो ठीक है, वो तो समझ आ गया, लेकिन उनको साइंस की बेसिक्स भी नहीं पता। मैं मेरे ख्याल से अगर उनको ये पूछ लो कि मतलब वो बोलें कि आदमी जो है कहाँ तेरे तेरे बॉडी में कहाँ सी का सिंबल कहाँ दिख रहा है, तू कार्बन से कैसे बना, मुझे तो नहीं लग रहा है ना, या तुम्हारे अंदर या हवा में ऑक्सीजन कहाँ, मेरे को O2 के छल्ले तो नहीं दिख रहे, तो ऑक्सीजन तो नहीं है हवा में। इट्स दैट काइंड ऑफ अ स्टूपिड थिंग टू से, बट पीपल सेड दैट। सो एंड स्टिल they are able to say that only because we evolved from that small fish without an eye in the sea to this huge powerful animal, still with lots of stupid ideas that fish probably held in that small without eye wala jo age phase tha hamare evolution ka। So they are able to say these things in spite of everything science has given them। So that's also, I think that's also credit to science in a way, that science enables you to be stupid and still be heard, and still treat people as if they are equally or more stupid than you। तो वो एक कमाल है ये, साइंस कैन only science can do that, I think। yeah
Just, to the question that you asked, why is it surprising that we can live with this contradiction? We've lived with caste, for example, for so many centuries. I mean, it is a contradiction in, of human nature to live with something like that. I mean, calling it unscientific, a belief in or the structure of the caste system and the belief in the caste system would be a severe understatement. So we've lived with that, and that's very much part of the way in which we deal with things. And so this idea now that you have science and what I said right at the beginning, that science as an authority, and you use the language of science to justify what you always believed in, which is and all your prejudices. So caste is justified through using scientific language. Gender disparities and discrimination is justified using the scientific language. And you use the authority of the scientific language. NASA said XYZ, and ISRO found XYZ. So you use the authority of scientific institutions and the language of science to justify something. That is what would be classified, let's say, as pseudoscience, right? So you use that. One would think that that's it shows you something that you can't simply say कि बाबा ने बोला है या cleric ने बोला है या religious head ने बोला है इसीलिए ये सच है. You have to say कि science ने बोला है इसलिए ये सच है. So you might say that that is some triumph of science perhaps as an institution, but the problem has not gone away, right? And so therefore the idea that you need to not just be curious, but you need to question. Right? And you need to be skeptical on a regular basis about everything that you see, even in society. It's not simply a matter of something that you are investigating in a lab and curious about the solar system, but curious about why is it that society is so unequal? Do you not ask that question? And if you don't ask that question, you are unscientific fundamentally.
हाँ, मुझे एक छोटी सी चीज
बिल्कुल,
याद आ गई
बिल्कुल,
अभी क्योंकि बात हुई तो डॉक्टर मिला मित्रा, आई डोंट नो इफ सम ऑफ यू नो, शी हैज वर्कड विद नासा, सो आई जस्ट वांटेड टू नो वो नासा ने वो फोटो कब खींचा था, वो दिवाली वाला आप थी वहां पे उस समय जिस दिन वो खींचा गया था, तो वो बस मुझे जाना, वो बहुत मतलब नासा ने बहुत काम किया है दुनिया के लिए, हबल वबल बना, लेकिन उससे बड़ा काम मेरे ख्याल से नासा के सीवी में नहीं है, तो प्लीज
Ram said, so I don't know the answer, but she's right that nowadays all the more I see NASA has said this or ISRO has said it or maybe DST has said it. So anyway, this one, the photograph they had, see the main thing is from satellites, you cannot even see the light that firecrackers produce or fuljaris or bombs produce. So it was not a photo of Diwali at all. It was actually a photo of lights. And it was trying to show how lights have come into different parts of the country. So it was a completely different study. And it was completely misrepresented.
अब मैं हर दिवाली छत पे फुलझड़ी लेके खड़ा होता हूँ कि अगले साल मेरा भी फोटो आएगा, नासा लेगा.
And NASA themselves have said कि satellites say you cannot take photographs of fulझड़ी, and it's not, the resolution is not good enough to see it that much. So it's completely misrepresented, but it's an interesting
Thank you for clarifying it.
And now they have released a new photo of India during Diwali, which looks like a normal country photo with maybe just a little bit more lights than usual. Whoa. No, it's still a satellite photo, and it's not taken on a nightly basis. Usually it's taken on an average, कई दिन के average से निकलता है.
Okay. Okay. That's quite a heartbreaking news for us Indians, I think.
I want to, we are roughly at the stage where I want to bring the audience into this conversation. There are some very fine scientists in this room. There are even scientists whom I would have loved to have on this stage instead of me. Anurag sitting right here, Sandeep Sibal right over there, and there might be others whom I don't know. He is a luminary. Harshvardhan Hegde, we forget to mention, is actually a star of the orthopedic profession in Delhi. So he is no lightweight himself in the sciences. I want this conversation now to include everybody, right? So if you have a point of view, a thought, a comment, a question, a reaction, from this point, it's now absolutely open, right? I wanted some time where the speakers would get a complete free hand, but from this moment, it's open. Just introduce yourself, I'll bring the mic to you. Anurag.
Sir, no difficult question. Yeah, don't worry. नहीं, मेरा एक सवाल ये है कि डीपली रिलीजियस सोसाइटीज़ में रैशनैलिटी को डेवलप करना इतना आसान है क्या? जिस तरह का समाज है हमारा, हम साइंटिफिक टेम्पर फैलाना चाहते हैं, लेकिन रिलीजियस रिचुअल्स, प्रैक्टिसेस, बिलीफ्स इतनी डीपली एम्बेडेड हैं हमारे कल्चर में, तो साइंटिफिक टेम्पर फैलाने में आई थिंक इट प्रेजेंट सम काइंड ऑफ अ बैरियर. आई डोंट नो आप लोगों का क्या विचार है इस बारे में.
सर देखो, आप मेरे से ज़्यादा पढ़े लिखे हैं, ज़्यादा जानकार हैं, तो मतलब मैं वो सूर्य को तो मोमबत्ती नहीं दिखाऊंगा, बट मेरा मानना यही है कि जैसे कि अब सब ने बात करी है, दोनों डॉक्टर साहब ने बात करी है, वरुण ने बात करी है कि सवाल उठाना जो है ना, एक वो नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट होती है बेसिकली, और सिस्टमेटिकली हमारी सोसाइटी में और रिलीजियस सोसाइटी में उस सवाल उठाने को खत्म करा जाता है, क्योंकि उसको जोड़ा जाता है रिस्पेक्ट से, उसको जोड़ा जाता है कल्चरल वैल्यूज से। कल्चर कुछ है नहीं, मतलब एक बैगेज है जो आपको खामखा उठा के ढोके चलना है। तो अगर आपके जहन में एक सवाल आ रहा है और आप उस सवाल पे मतलब एक, दैट्स व्हाट आई सेड, साइंस गिव्स यू अ काइंड ऑफ पर्सनल ऑनेस्टी, कि आपका रिलीजन कुछ भी बोल रहा है, आपके घर में कुछ भी सिखाया जा रहा है, लेकिन आपके जहन में अगर एक सवाल आ रहा है तो उस सवाल को आप इन्वेस्टिगेट तो करोगे। अब ये आपके ऊपर है कि आप उसको कितना डीप लेके जाना चाहते हैं, बट आई थिंक दैट इट्स रिलीजन इज एंटी साइंस, religion is anti science, religion is anti human, religion is anti woman, religion is anti humanity. तो इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल बेसिक क्वेश्चन, और इस पे तो आई थिंक सवाल, बड़ी बात वही है सर कि सवाल पूछना जरूरी है। सवाल को मार दिया जाएगा तो फिर साइंस भी मरी जाएगी, यही है। बाकी एक चीज मैं और कहना चाहता हूं कि ये जो इतनी कहानियां हमारे यहाँ बनी रहती, देखो ये पॉलिटिक्स से इसको डिसोसिएट नहीं कर सकते। इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द पॉलिटिकल रिजीम्स टू हैव अ वेरी अनसाइंटिफिक पब्लिक, बिकॉज देन दैट पब्लिक विल नॉट आस्क क्वेश्चंस। तो वो मतलब पॉजिटिवली ये ट्राई करते हैं कि भाई एक अनसाइंटिफिक जो नैरेटिव है, एटीट्यूड है, जैसे कि अभी मैम बोल रही थी कि लैंग्वेज यूज करके फालतू की बातों को जस्टिफाई करने की कोशिश करी जाती है। अब जैसे कि वो, अब नाम तो नहीं लूंगा, कि हमारा जो शानदार आदमी है देश का उसने साइंस कॉन्फ्रेंस में बोला था कि दुनिया की पहली प्लास्टिक सर्जरी इंडिया में हुई है। ठीक है, ये नैरेटिव इस तरह के फैलाए जाते हैं, और ये बातें व्हाट्सएप पे फॉरवर्ड होती रहती हैं। साइंस ही कंधे पे रख के नकली जाली कारतूस चला रहे हैं। अब यार ऐसी प्लास्टिक सर्जरी कौन करता है सर, बताओ? कोई करवाने जाएगा उनके पास? तो आई एम जस्ट सेइंग कि ये सोसाइटी में ये डेलिबरेटली पॉजिटिवली ये चाहते हैं कि लोग अनसाइंटिफिक हो जाएं, सवाल पूछना छोड़ दें। क्योंकि अगर सवाल पूछना बंद कर देंगे लोग तो कास्टिज्म में भी बिलीव करेंगे, जैसे आपने बोला, जेंडर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन में भी बिलीव करेंगे, रिलीजियस माइनॉरिटी को भी अभी जो हो रहा है हमारे उसको भी डिस्क्रिमिनेट करेंगे। क्योंकि रैशनैलिटी एक सिंपल सी चीज है सर, रैशनैलिटी एक सिंपल सी चीज है कि अगर कोई दूसरी कास्ट है तो उसमें और मेरे में फर्क क्या है। अब जैसे वरुण जी ने बोला कि हाथ पे क्या सी लिखा हुआ है, ऑक्सीजन में O2 लिखा, उसके क्या शरीर पे कहीं पे लिखा हुआ है कि वो मेरे से अलग है? और इसी तरीके से जब तक आप सवाल पूछते रहोगे, आप जेंडर इक्वालिटी में बिलीव करोगे, आप कास्टिज्म में कतई बिलीव नहीं करोगे, आप सेकुलरिज्म में बिलीव करोगे, और आप उस चीज में बिलीव करोगे, आप जस्टिस में बिलीव करोगे अगर आप सवाल पूछोगे तो।
मुझे बस एक जस्ट साइंस का ही सवाल है, तो साइंटिफिक तरीके से अगर देखें, बिकॉज देयर इज ओनली वन वे टू लुक एट इट, आर वी better today than we were 50 years ago, and 50 years ago were we better than 50 years before that? I think yes. So the arrow of time is pointing towards more scientific temperament, at least for the last 1,000 years, let's say. Every 100 years we are getting better. So there is I mean the data points to positive, unless there is a, there's an event which probably we are in the middle of, which stops this arrow of time. But as of now, I think yes, I mean we will eventually arrive at a place where there is more scientific temperament than today in 20 years, and then 20 years further and all. So that's how I think. Yeah, exactly.
Let me also come in on this. I do agree with you that there is a challenge of, rationality, of talking about rationality in a society that is so deeply religious. But that's generally been true across the world. The question is, I think that we've had examples, even in this country, of very radical militant movements for scientific temper. And there has been a section of society that has taken this forward on a regular basis. And this is what, if you take scientists in the developed world, but even in post-colonial societies, you look at a whole range of, historical figures, social reformers, but even scientists and political figures. You have Periyar, you have Narayan Guru, you have a whole range of political personalities that have taken, Ambedkar, have taken very militant positions, Nehru, on science. And this idea that somehow, when you are confronted with political conservatives whose agenda is to establish the sort of supremacy of religion over science, you don't confront it by taking a moderate position of political conservatism. You confront it by taking a militant position against irrationality. And this is what historically has been done. Even in India, we have examples of this. Unfortunately, today, the general liberal sentiment to oppose political conservatism is to take a slightly less conservative position, a moderate position, right? The problem is that unless you have radical militant, sort of mobilizations, and what I mean is intellectually radical, intellectually militant, speaking up about on rationality against irrationality, against obscurantism, you don't even have space for the moderate positions anymore. The space for the moderate positions is created by the more radical movements for rationality. And this is what we've had in this country. We have examples, Andhashraddha Nirmulan, etc. is still there. One of the reasons why there is an uproar against the assassinations of rationalists, and we have, lecture series, we have programs every time on the death anniversaries of Dr. Dabholkar, of Kalburgi, Gauri Lankesh, etc., is because, we understand that they represented those movements, those kinds of positions. So I think, yes, it perhaps takes more work in terms of mobilization and putting together an effort to counter irrationality. But I don't think it's impossible. And I agree with Varun that, that's where we are.
Which brings me back to you, Mila, because of the kind of work that you're doing now. But before I ask you the question, I have a question for the audience and actually the younger demographic. Many of you identified as below 30. Because that's the politically correct way of saying it. I also identify as below 20 personally, but it doesn't fly. So if you identify as below 30, feel free to identify as below 30 if you feel like it. How many of you today feel that you have the space and you have the power of voice to take that militant position? Just a show of hands. And if any one of you wants to talk about it, I'd love to hear it. Do you feel that you have the authority, that you have the power to take these strong positions so that that soft, the namby-pamby positions actually get room, because those people who are pushing it have actually created the space between what is, shall we say, acceptable and what really needs to happen? Do you feel that you have that space right now in your minds, in your workspaces, in your colleges, in your academic institutions? At home. At home. Absolutely. Show of hands. Whew. Chiki is the only person. Oh, Ananya is the second. Oh, three. Okay. It's. ये वाली fixed. इसका मैंने coin toss पहले से decide कर रखा था. So coming to you, Mila, this is disheartening. And the work that you're trying to do now attempts to push really hard back using, the start point as who?
I mean, this gives, he also has a question. Should I take your question before answering? Oh, okay. So, I mean, this gives me a lot of food for thought because I'm doing it we're doing it in a much more innocent way. So, what we are trying to do, my organization, is to, encourage an interest in STEM. Like people say, oh, physics books are boring, equations likha hota hai, scientists are boring, labs mein kaam karte hai. So, we're trying to make that interesting by doing hands-on activities, learn about space, and things like that. So, but we're obviously not doing the move, and we're trying to, through that, make them ask questions, find answers, maybe do engineering challenges, so they're learning all this design thinking, engineering thinking, how things work in the world. But maybe we need to push more on, go and challenge everyone. Go and challenge the, not just science, but challenge the caste system. Go in your society and ask how this garbage is being produced or how you're producing it. So, yeah. No, I mean, I've had these fights, but obviously a little less than you. But even when you have a fight, you're crushed down pretty fast nowadays. Maybe even at your workplaces, I'm in an organization I head, but people, friends of mine who are in institutes are really crushed down. Their petitions are turned down. They're given show cause notices. So you're always aware nowadays that I can't ask too much. So, but yeah, my learning from this is definitely, since I work with kids and I mentor a lot of kids who want to go into science, we should really push them more to question everything and fight it out.
Varun, yes. Dr. Sibyl, Sandeep.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, I had a follow-up question for you, Mila, and for anyone else. The fact that, for example, Darwin's theory of evolution or the periodic table has been pushed out, do you see this, I mean, how grave is it? Is it simply an aberration that would get fixed anyway through complementing it with other sources of information education, or do you think it somehow really is affecting the scientific temperament of the newer generation? What are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, the question is, as all of you know, recently NCERT removed very important chapters from the textbooks, like evolution. Evolution we know, like you said, obviously challenges a supreme power or religion. So we know about evolution. But periodic table, why did they remove that? They've actually removed also sources of energy, sustainability.
So basically the present regime is so senseless. I presume that they removed periodic table because some idiot must have gone to minister and said that this periodic table is a table about periods of women. And we don't talk about that, this is against Indian culture. तो उसने कहा निकालो इसको. इसके अलावा मुझे कोई और लॉजिक नजर नहीं आता है कि क्यों इसको हटाया हुआ.
See, what I've read is, in NCERT, they even said that periodic table is just a table that has elements. Acha, sir. Yeah.
Gohar, 1 sec. I'll just bring the mic to you.
ISRO was forced to hold an international seminar on Akash Tattva. International seminar on Akash Tattva because it is mentioned in our Shastras. And therefore removal of periodic table. Because when you are propagating this knowledge among young ones, कि 4 तत्वों से या 5 तत्वों से सब कुछ बना है, तो आप पीरियोडिक टेबल नहीं बना सकते, नहीं पढ़ा सकते. Yeah.
Remember that?
I do remember.
Your explanation for periodic table is actually more genuine, but mine is more funny.
Absolutely. इस बीच में हिंदुस्तान इतना बदला है कि जो रिफर किया था अभी थोड़ी देर पहले, मिरेकल की जब बात हो रही थी, गणेश जी वाला मिरेकल की बात कर रहा हूं, तो आई वॉज द फर्स्ट वन टू गो ऑन टेलीविजन with explanation of capillary action, etc., etc. That is history. तीसरे दिन मुझसे कहा गया कि कोई पंडित लेकर के आइए, साइंटिस्ट हो, क्योंकि ऑब्जेक्शंस आ रहे हैं आपके नाम की वजह से। मेरा नाम गौहर रजा है, बाय द वे। आज की डेट में मैं ये रिस्क नहीं ले सकता। आज हिंदुस्तान तकरीबन 20 साल बाद इतना बदल गया है कि मैं ये रिस्क नहीं ले सकता कि मैं जाकर के किसी मिरेकल के खिलाफ उस तरह का बयान दे पाऊं। लिंचिंग हो जाएगी, शायद घर पे अटैक हो जाएगा। बट ऑन सीरियस नोट, I just wanted to ask Tejal, do you agree with the idea that there is a sharp difference even now between science, scientific knowledge and technology? अभी हम बात कर रहे थे बुलडोजर की, तो बुलडोजर तो आजकल सरकारें बनाने और घर गिराने के लिए इस्तेमाल हो रहा है, लेकिन ये कि any example that anti-science people take always falls within the category of technology. There is no example that I can think of कि साइंस को गलत तरह से यूज किया जा सकता है। थिंक अबाउट इट, बिकॉज E is equal to MC स्क्वायर किसी का घर नहीं गिरा रही है। घर अगर गिरा रहा है तो बुलडोजर गिरा रहा है। हिरोशिमा के ऊपर बॉम्ब गिर रहा है तो वो टेक्नोलॉजी है। टेक्नोलॉजी का इस्तेमाल जरूर हर तरह की ताकतें और खासतौर से फैशिस्टिक ताकतें इंसानों को मारने के लिए इस्तेमाल करती हैं। वो एंटी सोसाइटी होती हैं, एंटी प्रोग्रेस होती हैं। लेकिन E is equal to MC स्क्वायर किसी का घर नहीं गिराती, किसी का घर नहीं जलाती, वो नॉलेज है। सो कभी कभी हम भी भूल जाते हैं कि ये हमें डिस्टिंक्शन शार्पली लोगों के सामने रखना चाहिए। और अगर एनवायरनमेंट का सवाल उठा रहे हैं तो उसके बारे में भी साइंटिस्ट ने बताया है कि कुछ गड़बड़ हो गई है। किसी शास्त्र से तो हमारे पास ये नॉलेज नहीं आई है ना कि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड बढ़ रही है। कुरान में तो नहीं लिखा है कि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड बढ़ना शुरू हो जाएगी जब मोदी जी गद्दी पे बैठेंगे, तो ऐसा नहीं होने जा रहा कहीं किसी भी शास्त्र में नहीं। तो अगर टेक्नोलॉजी के खड़ी की हुई प्रॉब्लम्स की बात कर रहे हैं हम, तो उन प्रॉब्लम्स की तरफ भी ध्यान साइंस ने दिलाया है और उसके सॉल्यूशन भी शायद साइंस ही निकालेगी। थैंक यू।
Thank you. And I do agree with a lot of what you said, although I do disagree a little bit in terms of the distinction you draw between science and technology in terms of it being sharp. I don't think one is possible without the other. I think it's possible without technology. We know about environmental problems because, of course, we know the science through which this happens. We know the greenhouse effect. We know the difference between incoming radiation and radiation that is reflected back. But we need to measure, and that measurement is possible through technology in many senses. And so the scale of the problem is available to us, is accessible to us through technology. This is true in medical science. This is true in in fact, in medical science, it's even more true how closely knowledge and technology have gone together. Right. So, in that sense, I don't think it's as sharp a division because the ownership and the control of technology also leads to the ownership and control of science, and vice versa. It's not one way. In India specifically, I think we've had a bigger problem in the past, of course, with technology. I think that is largely because of our caste system. We like to think, sit and do math. We don't like to get our hands dirty, right? And that's an artifact of the caste system. You divide those who do manual work and those who do mental work, and therefore technology as they should go together, never actually go together. And this is in societies where they do go together, have done much better in terms of both science and technology than we have. So in that sense also, I think, that distinction, I agree. That's why I said I don't disagree with you completely. I agree with you that the distinction, unfortunately, is very much an Indian, but I don't think it's a good one.
Kaleem here next to me is a management educator of considerable distinction in the city. He has a question.
क्वेश्चन से ज़्यादा
सर मेरा भी एक सवाल था दोनों डॉक्टर से, अगर आप इजाजत दें तो पहले मैं
सर
पूछूं।
प्लीज
हाँ मैम, मैं आप दोनों से पूछ रहा हूँ, वरुण आप इस सवाल में इंक्लूडेड नहीं हो, ठीक है। अक्सर ये सुनने को मिलता है मेरे को एक लिबरल तबके की औरतों से, ठीक है, कि साइंस इज अ मेल गेज, बट बोथ ऑफ यू बीइंग so accomplished in this particular field, what should be the counter argument? Because I don't think science is a male gaze.
I agree with you that I don't think so. I don't agree with, because I think this is also in another way of essentializing gender, which is fundamentally a position that I don't agree with. If you say that, okay, science is done in a particular manner by men and different by women, then you would also agree that men can do math better than women, no? Well, nonsense. So it's in that sense, it's a position from both ends of the political spectrum, which lands up in the same space of essentializing gender, which I would disagree with. In terms of whether in actual practice, whether certain questions get taken up and addressed in certain ways because you have more men in the scientific establishment, yes, there is an issue. So in that sense, whether you should have more women scientists, whether there should be more diversity in universities and classrooms, and this is true across class, caste, gender, not just women. But more diversity means you'll ask better questions, you'll ask more questions, you'll set research problems that are much more relevant, that are broader, that a smaller sort of a minority perhaps cannot necessarily envisage or think of. So in that sense, I agree that there is an issue, but that science specifically is attributable to some kind of a gendered view, I disagree.
So I'll just add to it that, to the same point that, it's also the societal difference because women are kept more at home. Some sciences need you to work late. My own daughter is in a bio lab, which is making her stay till 11 p.m. right now. So, many houses don't let you stay. When you get married, they say you work more from home. So these issues are there. But I'm seeing more in the international community that they're valuing women in a different way in science, because science, maybe women have a different way of thinking, and that is also valuable. So we shouldn't say anymore that science needs only one kind of thinking, but what are the different things that women can contribute that will change the face of science also.
I wanted to give a small comment on the initial question that Paritosh raised about how many of us can voice it out, and the militant thing that you spoke of in terms of. And I think one of the reasons why it doesn't happen is that if you're scientific, you're rational. And when you're rational, your rationality also holds you back in taking a backlash or facing the wrong. When you're not scientific, you're irrational. And when you're irrational, you don't mind going multiple miles doing things that could even be damaging. And so therefore, one of the strong reasons why non-scientific nonsense gets away with murder and scientific just becomes a bystander is that sometimes our rationality takes the better of us. And I think to a large extent, therefore, non-scientific temperament wins. And opinion in terms of why that entire thing happens. What I wanted to ask, and any one of you can take it up, is can there not be an existence of both together? What I mean to say is a person who's religious could be scientific, and somebody who's scientific can also be religious. I think it's just that race where you want to prove that science is better than religion, or religion is better than science and the latter one has made people do nonsensical stuff. Can they coexist?
Sir, there have been examples of scientists who have been extremely religious, like Abdul Salam, Nobel Prize winner from Pakistan. And even there is an example of Neil Bohr. अपने घर के बाहर जो है ना हॉर्स शू लगा रखा था. तो जो उसके घर पे कुछ साइंटिस्ट आया, उसको पूछा कि भाई यार तू तो इतना बड़ा क्वांटम फिजिक्स का फादर बना फिर रहा है और तू ये घूम रहा है, तो क्योंकि हॉर्स शू इज सपोज टू ब्रिंग गुड लक. तो बोर गेव अ वेरी साइंटिफिक आंसर. कहता है मैं मानूं या ना मानूं इसको थोड़ी फर्क पड़ रहा है, गुड लक लाएगा तो लाएगा ये, ठीक है ना. तो जो when scientists are religious, it's not a comment on science, because science is independent of that. I can be a physicist or a mathematician, and yet I can be a 5 वक्त का नमाजी और मंगलवार को अंडा ना खाने वाला बंदा, but that's not actually a comment on science. Religion and science are actually एक दूसरे का opposite argument है. Religion is a belief system, जो पहले भी बात हुई, and science is based on inquiry and evidence. रिलीजन को एविडेंस की जरूरत ही नहीं है. बोल दे कि भाई हाँ भाई ये हुआ था 300 साल पहले या 3000 साल पहले, मान लो, करते फिरो. तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि रिलीजन एंड साइंस कैन coexist, but a religious person can be scientific and a scientific person can be religious, but that's more about human societies and how they evolve. ये मेरा मानना है. People can disagree.
I think I agree with him that they do coexist. Science and religion are coexisting, but it's not a peaceful coexistence, and it cannot be a peaceful coexistence. There will always be a contradiction there, and so therefore there will be confrontation, because both are political endeavors, human endeavors, so there is going to be tension there. Whether a scientist can be religious, of course, we have scientists who are religious, before the launch of satellites or whatever, we have visits, and they're criticized also for being so. That one might argue that it is benign, how does it matter, you shouldn't alienate people, etc. But is it benign for a scientist, a practicing scientist, to look for his daughter, caste, look at the kundali, look at all of this, and go through all the rituals that you do go through in Indian marriage for that? Is that a benign thing that scientists are religious, and in their social life they're religious, right? Will that not affect the way in which they do science, who they choose as students, how they treat their students, how they conduct research, how they abstract from that research to what it means for society? Not as, I would be complacent as your question seems to suggest about what that would mean. So in that sense, yes, it happens, and we do have it happening, and we can have long periods of time when it doesn't lead to tension. But it is not without its contradictions and problems and negative impacts on society, in my opinion.
We're down to about 10 minutes. I have a question here, and then after that I think, I have two questions here, one after the other.
It's not really a question. What I feel is that coexistence of science and religion is not the intent of our global leaders. Because if they were to coexist, then the global leaders wouldn't have the control that they desire on the people. And hence, global leaders do control our media and information, and through which they control the general population, right? And if the population is made to fight with each other, and if they're not even, if they don't even flirt with the idea of coexistence, then there's only going to be fight. And that's how because what I feel is that the political leaders, chahe Modi ho ya koi bhi ho, they know the value of science. They know the value of, we were just talking about radical militant ideas, but anyway,
they know the value of science, but they don't want the people to know the value of science or technology or, you know, the advancements. COVID आके चले गया है, vaccines हो गया, and yet, you know, people are still talking about how, you know, it's a God sent satanic or whatever.
So we were talking about, ma'am, you especially said about militant opposition to unscientific temperament. And then the gentleman there spoke about the rational mind choosing not to engage after one point of time. So I want to, with a very specific example, ask the question that how far do you engage, right? So, for example, a popular woman, I mean, I'll take her name, Sudha Murthy, has divided the nation with a spoon, right? She's been speaking about the fact that I'll carry my own utensils, etc., etc. And Twitter has just doubled over in discourse. I mean, X has doubled over in like all sorts of discourse, saying that, and my ex was incidentally also a Tamilian Brahmin, so I have that in my mind as well. And I'm a Bengali, so I eat everything that moves, and he wouldn't touch my plate. So the question was, yeah. He didn't have a problem touching me though, so that's fine. But anyway, the fun part here is that a lot of people were like, oh, but you wear silk saris, etc. Then a lot of other people, and this was also a part of the liberal crowd, who said that she's doing this in her personal space. As long as it doesn't affect you, it should be okay. Now, I find that very problematic, because if you're going to be irrational in your personal space, you're going to be irrational in your public space as well, right? So do I now go into people's personal space and say, no, I will not let you be pure vegetarian in your personal space as well. Stop it. It's propagating caste. Where do I go till? How do I draw a line? When do I say I am exhausted and I can't do this anymore? Where does it start and where does it end? So yeah, that's my question for everyone.
Okay. तो यहाँ पे दो चीज़ें हैं. एक तो I mean the example you gave is of this public personality, you know, probably our next some senior post. That's what the buzz is, that she'll be given a, you know, some kind of a government post or something, and that's why she's you know, keeping her utensils to herself and all. So that's the buzz. I don't know if that is true. So now there are two things. Someone saying I carry my own spoons, and then, okay, that person said that. But most of people I know who were arguing there were not arguing with her. They were arguing with people who were defending that idea to the extreme, saying this is absolutely okay and this is how it should be done. And you know, what if the spoon, you know, someone actually gave me, sorry for the bad language coming up now, but someone actually asked me, would you eat in a plate someone has pooped and then washed it? So yeah, I was like, okay, if you actually, you know, are going to that extreme, then I want to ask you, how do you know someone has not pooped in a plate you are eating in? Right, if it is properly washed after that, how do you know? Like you're going to, let's say, a pure, you know, vegetarian restaurant, how do you know that, you know, someone has not done that already? So there is no way of, you know, actually.
If you're in the US House of Congress, they have also pooped on the lectern, so you can't even speak there.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, what? So the people who are defending the idea with actually very, very casteist ways of equating, so they are already equating, you know, food with poop just because you don't agree with those food habits is typical, the core of all the casteist behavior, which is the idea of purity, right? So all the casteist behavior and in fact a lot of sexism and misogyny comes from the idea of purity, and patriarchy runs on the idea of purity and keeping the bloodlines pure. So you control women, similarly keeping the bloodlines pure, so you control caste or your caste only. So if you, and it's not a big exaggeration that someone who is believing in those kind of panic purity, what this person is suggesting, then how do you? I mean, it's a very straight line from there to in fact what Hitler was trying with the eugenics and all. Then eventually, then why are you carrying your own utensils and not making your own utensils? Right? There are people who are actually making the steel which you think is pure, but those people are probably, eating meat, and then they are making that, and then the detergent powder you are using to clean the steel is probably again manufactured in a company where the owner and everyone in the company is probably eating meat. So nothing is pure eventually. Then you are stuck in this. You have to probably move to an island, start steel manufacturing first of all, then start growing food, and then start making detergent of your own from plants. And that's the only way you can live a completely pure life. And then again, you are probably inhaling the same oxygen which is coming from, at least not the oxygen, then the carbon dioxide I am exhaling is coming out of a meat eater, and you are fucked for life. So yeah, it's
To answer the question about, this reminded me of, and since we are in Mumbai, we should have, otherwise there will be other political repercussions. We should have Marathi here. It reminded me of a poem which starts with Hadachi kada karun kadala khanitun kulsa. So I basically broke my bones and got the coal out of the mines. And so you use that coal. Everything is powered currently. I mean, we've spoken about climate change without actually speaking about coal. But तेव्हा बदमाशा कळला नव्हता का धर्म आमचा. So didn't you understand my religion and my caste when you use that coal? And it goes on to say, you have all these scriptures written on paper that I made. Right, and so you give you offerings to God in vessels that I have made. Doesn't this offend your God? Doesn't this offend? But that is from where Varun stopped. This is not Namdev. Remember, as of now, I'll let you know. But to answer the question about where you get personal space to stop. Said, conversation is not acceptable, right? You don't go personally ask people to do this, but using certain language is not acceptable in society because there were movements, people got together and struggled for this. The individual frustration and tiredness goes away when you come together to fight for something. I think a younger generation has forgotten that a lot of the fights and wins that we have got in the past have gotten because of collective mobilization. Come together, do things together. You don't have to fight alone. And once you do that, you create a situation where those who don't have agency today to fight back, those who don't have agency to change, get empowered to do so. So, I think that is something that we should strive towards, not think about how to do this individually.
So, my name is Leena. Just want to ask, and this is something that I struggle with personally a lot, is how do you believe what you believe in terms of, asking questions and, having that scientific temper. So you decide that you're going to question something, and then you seek some information or some knowledge, and then you have to decide, right, one way or the other. Let's say, for example, climate change. Am I a climate change believer? Am I a climate change skeptic? And there are equally coherent arguments from both sides. And I must admit that there have been evenings where I have been quite in line with the climate change skeptics. But I'm just using it as an example. I'm saying, how do you believe what you believe? Because there is so much information out there. How do you trust? How do you decide what source you will trust? And then kind of place a little bit of faith into it, right? Because not in terms of faith like on the other religious side, but even for a scientific temperament, you must have some faith in something, right? So.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm a little surprised that there are coherent arguments coming out of climate skeptics, but but I would like to see these. But let me say that I agree with you that there's a barrage of information, and what information do you trust? The idea that we need to, understand the scientific method or use a particular metric or way to assess the information that we assess. Information that is not simply presented as diktats, not simply presented as pronouncements, but argued for, right? A respect for argumentation, a respect for not confusing anecdotes with evidence, right? My grandmother, etc., etc. Grandmother's tales are nice, cozy, comfortable, etc. They're not science. So the ability to distinguish between the two is something that we need to. Unfortunately, our schools today are too. This is where we should start. We should start doing this in schools. I don't blame necessarily the schools for not doing this. It is too overburdened. My daughter goes to a public school. I know how overburdened those teachers are. The number of students in class, the diversity in class, which or something. But the fact that you can't then engage a child in this exercise so that we are equipped to be able to negotiate information, right? It's a challenge, I agree, and I don't have XYZ answer for this question, but perhaps being able to, something that Mila is doing in terms of STEM communication, right? Science communication. We have had good science communicators in the past, journalists. None of the newspapers think it's an important beat anymore, communicating science. It's gone. Nobody communicates it well anymore. But you've had this in the past, who understand science, but also understand communication and are able to argue for a position, not necessarily state and say you have to believe it because it's coming from a scientist.
Okay, this is the very last comment of the question, and then we'll close out.
Hi, my name is Ali. It's often being said that philosophy is mother of all science. And
झूठ है ये बात, ये रोक दो.
Sorry?
Philosophy is not the mother of all science.
Okay. And philosophy being also the reason from which has given rise to a number of religious beliefs and everything. In a way that also philosophy did initial seedings to multiple scientific disciplines. So is it the science and religion that couldn't coexist together? Or is it the misunderstanding of religion which is widely spread by these benefactors of so-called the thekedars or the political people who doesn't want to bring the religion in its true sense to the people, which also have some scientific roots to it. So is it what? What's your take on that? Is it the religious belief in the science or the misunderstanding of that which has been widely spread by these benefactors so that the scientific thought process should prevail among the society?
Sir, with all due respect, I want to say that there are no scientific aspects to religion. So religion and science, as I have answered before, religion and science cannot coexist. As far as philosophy is concerned, till 20th century, philosophy and physics, for example, they were trying to address the same question, right? But in the 20th century, physics made so much progress that philosophy was left far behind. Now philosophy is something else. Philosophy is for wannabe scientists who want to project that we are looking for the larger question, but their methods are not scientific. So that is the relationship between science and philosophy. And as far as religion is concerned, no, there are no misinterpretations of religion. There is only one interpretation: belief. And belief inherently is unscientific. I hope I have answered your question.
We have to wrap this up, but before I go, uh, I have actually I have a request to all of you uh, to offer a little comment. You know, there must be something for you, Sanjay, for you, Varun, for you, Tejal. You of course have spoken eloquently about it all through, and Mila, that made you feel that this is an important enough issue or topic that you set aside all this time for this moment, completely gratis. I will tell you, I did not even organize for their local conveyance. They came here on their own. All right. What is it that drives you, Sanjay, so hard about this topic? Why is it so emotionally important to you that this is something that you need to talk about, something that you need to engage over?
सर एक तो मैं आई लिव इन यूपी, ठीक है, and my late father was a Sanghi, so I had no option to survive, to breathe, to ask questions. I had to go this way. And also I was lucky enough in my life at a very early age. I got introduced to Richard Feynman. आप सब लोग जानते होंगे Feynman lectures in physics, and that changed my life forever. मतलब अक्सर लोग बोलते हैं कि लोग अपना पहला प्यार कभी नहीं भूलते हैं. ये मेरा पहला प्यार है जिसको मैं कभी नहीं भूला. I keep on revisiting it. तो या तो मतलब जब हम स्कूल में होते थे वो रेस्निंग हॉलिडे वगैरह पढ़े, वरुण पढ़ी होंगी रेस्निंग हॉलिडे, और नेल्सन पार्कर थी एक, तो उन्होंने फिजिक्स इंट्रोड्यूस किया, फिर फाइनमैन से इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ, एंड देन आई नेवर वेंट बैक. एंड देयर इज अ अब आपने पूछा ये तो मैं एक बड़ा एक इंटरेस्टिंग एपिसोड बताता हूँ, कमिंग बैक टू द सेम पॉइंट जो हम पहले बात कर रहे थे, वो लिबरल्स का एटीट्यूड साइंस को लेके. फाइनमैन लेक्चर्स में मैकेनिक्स का एक पूरा वॉल्यूम है, और मैकेनिक्स में फाइनमैन इज एक्सप्लेनिंग इंस्टेंटेनियस वेलोसिटी. सो ही गिव्स एन एग्जांपल दैट देयर इज अ वुमन हु स्टार्ट्स ड्राइविंग फ्रॉम हर होम, एंड शी इज ड्राइविंग एट 80 miles per hour, and the cop catches her and tells her, ma'am, you're overspeeding. And she says, why? You are driving at 80 miles per hour. And she says, how can I be driving 80 miles an hour? I have been driving only for 10 minutes. So Feynman was explaining instantaneous velocity. So when he gave that example, so if Feynman went to a conference and कुछ औरतें वहाँ पे प्ले कार्ड लेके खड़ी हो गई कि Feynman a sexist pig, he has shown women to be so dumb. So वो चुपचाप वहाँ से जाके वो जो माइक पकड़ के बैठे कि ladies, the cop was a woman. So yeah, all these anecdotal stories and all these things, they got me hooked to science and physics, and because I was always very interested in equations and mathematics, and so one thing led to another, and that's why I've become so passionate about this. And fortunately, when I moved on in life, I made friends like Varun. Varun is also a very rational, scientific person. Even his most emotional poetry is scientific. The last one that I heard was कि वो कला का कौन सा गाना है, बिखरने का मुझको शौक है बड़ा, समेटे का मुझको तू बता जरा.
नहीं, मेरे को हर संगीतकार जिसके साथ मैंने काम किया है उसने पहले कसम दिलवाई है कि ये गाना तू गाना मत, किसी को उनको लगेगा बहुत खराब गाना है, तुम सुना देना. So मैं फोन पे आज ही again it's science is involved here because the AI generated voice is now available of. So अभी कोई भी गाने का आप AI generated voice निकाल सकते हैं. So I'll just play this. ये गाना जो है मेरा, बिखरने का मुझको शौक है बड़ा, समेटेगा मुझको तू बता जरा, AI generated. Original song is sung by शाहिद माल्या, but AI generation में silence the phone. Yeah, this is. So this is, yeah, I don't believe कि Prime Minister sang it himself. So AI generated ही है ये. But unless he actually sang it to, you know, I don't know who. But
So I think the singer is also an engineer who's become a musician, right? I was reading somewhere.
this
The singer of the song.
No, no, no.
you're not?
Shahid Malia, no, no. He's not an engineer. That. No, no. ये तो engineer है. To answer your question, why I'm here, because I think two things I believe can save us, save humanity, not just us at this point. One is scientific temperament, and two, human laziness. So these two things combined, and laziness, I can't work on laziness. That would be counterproductive. So I can work on scientific temperament, and talking about it because I think as I was talking about earlier also, people think of right-wing extremism having multiple defining features of it. So bigotry, and there are many things around the world you can choose. Okay, यहाँ पे bigotry ज़्यादा है, यहाँ पे कुछ भी अलग-अलग चीजें होती हैं. But for me, the most defining trait of right-wing thinking is lack of scientific temperament, lack of aesthetics, lack of aesthetic values, lack of understanding of symmetry, understanding of basic things like color coordination. They are, I don't think any scientist ever, like, can you imagine Einstein going to a party wearing t-shirt saying Einstein, Einstein, Einstein? It can't happen, right? It won't, no scientific person will ever do that. So, scientific temperament saves lives, but also before that, it just is more pleasing to the eye and to the ear and to the mind. The things, like, look at this room. What is going on here? I mean, what is that thing? वो जो उधर लगा हुआ है, वो क्या चल रहा है? So a lot of these things will automatically improve the day people start thinking about just basic aesthetics, basic artistic values, and every art comes from science. Someone was talking about connection between science and religion. I don't think there is one, but between science and art, there is a very deep connection. In fact, both are like two sides of the same coin for me. And that's why being an artist, for me, science is the lifeblood of an art, of all arts. So yeah.
I think I have answered this question in many ways throughout. It's very simply put, it's the people stupid. It's like it's saying that if you want an equal society, a society without strife, without drudgery, without discrimination, and scientific temper, and a scientific view of the world, the natural, physical, and the social world is something that you land upon immediately. And so the driving force there is that the society that we live in is unacceptable on many levels. We need to change it, and that for that reason, I think scientific temper is important.
So
you literally turned it into a lifestyle.
Yeah, so for me it was a lifestyle, but like he says, scientific temperament is not just for scientists. It's for everybody. It's for artists, literature, philosophers, anybody. It's a way of thinking, and I respect every person as much if you have the scientific temperament, equality, and all that. But my fear, and that is why I came here today, because being in so many science groups and WhatsApp groups and scientific community, I see the trend is changing. There are conferences on ancient science, on Vedic science, on, Mahabharat science, and my fear is, to push up our nationalism or our supremacy of ancient science. Are we taking away from modern science what our students are going to learn? And it is that, because I'm seeing that now in mainstream conferences, mainstream science magazines. So it's the same thing. Nobody's putting them down, so it's just coming up. So at the risk of modern science not being taught in schools or not being in our community, and that fear is what is making me speak up more and stand up for scientific temperament more.
We must absolutely now bring this to a close, not least because my booking is running out, but they won't throw us out anytime soon. I will also tell you that. So, first and foremost, I think I walk away from here so much more stimulated and of course endlessly amused. So both worked. That was what we had promised the audience. That's what you delivered. And you on your part, I mean, one of the fears that you always have when you set up a session like this, which is potentially perilous, is, will somebody disrupt it? And that was a very real thought in my head. So you've been a fantastic audience. I think you should give yourself a round of applause. And that we filled so many seats. I mean, there were some of us in the organizers who up until 2 hours ago still thought that it would be a good idea to have it in the press club hall, which we had also booked, by the way, just for good order's sake, but that would have accommodated the first 3 rows. And then the rest of you would have to stand outside. So thank you very much. I want to thank certain friends who actually enabled us to get this space. I want to thank the people who've done the video coverage today, the audio today, the arrangements for the lights. We have a little caterer. Unfortunately, the other tea and coffee will be very cold and not worth having. And all of you made the time and effort. Sandeep, poor man, has barely landed from the far side of the planet, but he also made it here. And Mila came in this morning and almost directly came in from the airport. So all of you, you've been a fantastic audience. This has been a wonderful evening. And with some luck, hopefully we shall have more such events in the future. Thank you and good night.